Are you just trying to live, laugh, or love? Or are you just trying to do all of the above? This is the podcast for you. Whether you're an aspiring comic, a headlining comic, a class clown, or just an average bro or doe looking for a good time, you, my friend, are in the right place. Welcome to the magical world of Just Trying to Podcast. Here we go. Welcome, triers, doers, and everything in betweeners. This is Just Trying to Podcast with your host, Mike Tony Heath. So good to be back in the studio after a couple weeks out on the road, not doing comedy, just doing life with my wife. It was a good time. We traveled the Midwest. We flew into Kansas City, Missouri at the new airport. It is popping off in there. They got a bunch of cool KC like stores where you could buy KC unique items, people from like local creators. I found this hat that I've never seen anywhere else in KC. Is like this local hat maker, and he's selling his hats in the airport. I think that's just so cool, like a local artist selling their stuff there. And they got some good barbecue. I ate Meat Mitch there, and we had a great time hanging out with family in the Kansas City area. I got some barbecue sauce that I took home from Joe's Barbecue. I got like 4 bottles of their Night of the Living barbecue sauce. It's my favorite. Oh, so exciting. Had lots of great coffee, lots of great time with family and friends. We went to Columbia, home of the Missouri Tigers. M-I-Z. Y'all say Z-O-U. All right, y'all knew that. But if you didn't, now you know. So next time you hear of the M-I-Z, wherever you're at in the world, you yell back Z-O-U. Go Tigers. And then we went to St. Louis and got picked up by our friends, the Ultikins, and we got Sump coffee, and I'm currently sipping on the pink Bourbon, as you can see here. I'm sipping it, and this is going to be a taste test. Oh, that is just delightful. Oh, so good. I'm not very good at tasting coffees. My friend Chuck is, y'all know Jimmy Chuckles from Jimmy Chuckles and the Fire Ants, a.k.a. Kyle, a.k.a. Chuck Wagon. Homeboy is, as you heard in the last podcast, if you haven't heard, he is a premier coffee roaster, normal coffee roasters. I think they're going live to the public here in the future, but be on the lookout. And he always says, like, breathe in through your nose as you kind of suck the coffee into your mouth. And I haven't figured it out yet, but it's a very fruity coffee. It's a light roasted coffee, which is my preference. I used my friend Kyle's recipe. I think I need to let it cool down before I get any notes out of it. But if they come to me, I'll come back to you guys. And then we went to Indiana, where my friend Christopher, as you guys know from the last podcast, he lives there in Muncie. And as he was dropping us off at the airport, we flew out of Indianapolis back to Seattle. He was claiming that the Indy 500 is the biggest sporting event in the world. That there was billions watching. That it is the biggest spectacle in sports. And he had this belief because a man at a 7-Eleven once told him this. So we quickly corrected him that it's not even in the top 10. Not even close. Like there are maybe million. I'm not trying to hate on the Indy 500. A great sporting event, if that's your especially if that's your thing. But it's nowhere near the biggest spectacle in sports in the world. The World Cup, the Super Bowl isn't even. Sorry, Americans, but we're not that popular. I mean, we're pretty popular, but our sports aren't as popular as the World Cup. Now, obviously, America competes in the World Cup, but that is the biggest one by far. So that's pretty neat, even bigger than the Olympics, which seems bizarre to me. But as we have discovered earlier, the way we can fix the Olympics, I'm going to keep coming back to this, guys, because I think this is how we get the Olympics to beat the World Cup. Definitely to beat, it's already beating the Indy 500, but to actually beat the World Cup would be to insert some average Joes and athletes. I don't know how to, we haven't quite figured out how to do like the lottery and give them time to train. And we kind of do these like documentaries that Netflix or Amazon, somebody releases on their streaming platform, kind of chronicling their story of getting picked as an athlete to compete in this event and seeing if they can not come in last. And there's maybe like a couple, there's like one or two in each event. I think that would make the Olympics so much more fun to watch because everyone would be rooting for the underdog. Like truly, they've been training for maybe 6 months, maybe even for a year to compete in the Olympics. Anyways, speaking of sporting events, I was in Spokane, Washington, a.k.a. Hooptown, USA, this past weekend for Hoopfest. Got the merch right here. We did not win our bracket, but it was a great. It's the best basketball weekend on earth. So if you haven't been in Spokane for Hoopfest weekend, I could not recommend it enough. It was a great time. I had a great team. Our team name was the Flat Earth Trotters. Kyrie is our leader. That was just like our slogan. But we actually don't believe in that the Earth is a globe. It is a flat Earth. Why would we be so disillusioned to think that the Earth is a ball? So this episode is all about an imposter syndrome, the imposter syndrome, which if you don't know what that is, here is what Google says about the imposter syndrome. Actually, this is what ChatGPT says about the imposter syndrome. So I'm bringing this up because I feel as if I have been experienced this around comedy. All right, so don't believe everything you read on the internet, but here's what ChatGPT says. It's important to note that the imposter syndrome is not a diagnosable mental disorder, but rather a common psychological experience. So I'm not saying I've went to a doctor about this. Even many successful people have experienced imposter syndrome at some point in their life. I'd say that we all probably have experienced this. And it's really described as maybe having challenging negative self-beliefs. So it's where it's this psychological phenomenon. Could you spell that, honestly? Could you spell phenomenon? I could not, but I can pronounce it, where individuals doubt their abilities, skills, and accomplishment despite evidence of their competence. People experiencing imposter syndrome often feel like frauds. Or believe that their achievements are a result of luck or external factors rather than their own abilities. They have a persistent fear of being exposed as inadequate, even when they are successful in their endeavors. Now, I will say, I don't think that I've necessarily been successful in comedy yet. So maybe it's not even fair to say that I have imposter syndrome. But those kind of negative self-thought, there's like this window between like 1:30 and 4 p.m. where it's just like, I'm horrible at comedy. I don't even know why I'm trying to do this. What am I even thinking going out here to these open mics, trying to tell jokes, trying to make people laugh? Like, who do I think I am doing this, right? Like, I can't even think of new material, da-da-da-da-da. Or like when I try to sit down and write jokes and I just like can't get anything going. Nothing's quite like clicking. It just hitting me, So I've been reading this book, Is This Anything by Jerry Seinfeld. A great book so far, just early on in it. But there's this quote that really kind of struck me as I've been kind of reflecting on this. He says, I can personally guarantee you that every comedian you've ever seen feels inside that they don't have as much good material as they really wish they had. The biggest comedians you can name still go on stage with a little worry in the back of their head that whatever they have might not be good enough tonight. We always want more. That especially that line, that little worry in the back of their head, is as successful as they have been. Now, I'm not saying that I've been successful, but like think of the biggest comedians that you could, in addition to Jerry Seinfeld. Maybe it's maybe it's Gary Goldman. Maybe it's Dusty Slay. Maybe it's Dave Chappelle. Maybe it's Bill Burr. Maybe it's Theo Vaughn. Recently, someone tried to convince me that Theo Vaughn is like the next up-and-coming greatest American comedian. I would say most people today, when I ask people like, who's your favorite comedian, they would say like Dave Chappelle, or who do you think is the best? They would say Dave Chappelle. And this guy was trying to convince me that Theo Vaughn is the next up. To everyone will say Theo Vaughn is the greatest comedian alive performing today. So I don't know. I'm not no hate. You know, we got that mullet gang going with Theo, but whoever you can think of, what Jerry's saying is they have that little worry in the back of their mind that whatever they have isn't good enough for tonight. Like I think that's slightly like an imposter syndrome. And I think, man, whatever you're just trying to do, maybe you're just trying to be a comedian, or maybe you're just trying to sell crafts on Etsy, or maybe you're just trying to be a dad. Maybe you're just trying to be a mom. Maybe you're just trying to be a teacher. Man, I don't think we have enough respect for the teachers of our youth. Man, they are going through it. It's hard to be a teacher. I know that not all teachers are good. You know, there's bad teachers like the teacher that held me back from recess because whenever they gave us an assignment to color a cat, I colored my cat blue because blue was my favorite color at the time. And then I didn't get to go to recess because that's not a realistic cat. And, you know, I think that killed my creative spark early on. I had to fit in a box. So maybe you have teachers like that. But whatever you're just trying to do, you know, there's going to have those negative self like that. Whatever you have isn't good enough. Whatever that assignment you've created to have your students color a cat isn't good enough. Or the financial presentation that you're bringing to your boss, or maybe you're trying to develop market research. You're like a marketing specialist, and you're like, I have this presentation I've been working on for like a couple weeks about this new industry, and you're bringing it to your boss, and it's like, is this going to be good enough? You know, maybe you've been successful in all your other projects you've given. You know, so whatever you're just trying to do, what I'm saying is like, and then what Jerry's pointed out is someone who is like one of the most successful comedians of this current generation, saying like, I experienced this, you know, like I think I need more. I always want more, but even what I have isn't good enough. So, man, that just like encouraged me, like, you know, even though I haven't experienced that success, to say, you know, like, can I keep going? Even where I'm at today, having done comedy for like 9 months. And I think whatever you're just trying to do and you're feeling like insecure about it, is just remember, like, why are you doing that? Like, I think ultimately, man, it would be awesome. It would be amazing if I think, you know, I'm kind of like thinking about my goals of like, if I could record an hour special of stand-up comedy, if I could do that in a comedy club, I think that would be like, that's like my goal right now. I would like to achieve that. Now, I don't know how long that would take me. I don't have like a time frame in mind, but I would love to achieve that. But if I never get there, like I do plan on working toward getting there, but if for some reason something happens in life where I can't do it, like, it's okay. I don't need to achieve that goal. Like, along the way, as I'm just trying to record this hour special of comedy, in a comedy club, while I'm working toward that, I just want to have fun. I want to live, laugh, and love. I want to live life to the fullest. I want to have a great marriage with my wife. I want to have great relationships with my friends. I want to have a thriving, abiding relationship with Jesus where I am I am seeking the nearness of God in my life. Like, I want all of those things more than I want to do that hour special. But I don't think that those are in contrast to each other. So again, I'm just trying to come back to why am I even doing this? It's like I'm having fun doing it. Like, I'm meeting some of the most interesting people I've ever met. Like, if you've listened to episode 20 of Just Trying to Podcast, you listen to Rob's story. Like, I only met him because I'm doing stand-up comedy, and like, he's one of the most interesting people like I've ever met. Like, he's such a fun guy. And meeting Charles Hall Jr., a local Spokane comic who was on episode 15 of JTP. And there's countless others who I've met and who I will meet, in the coming years of doing comedy. So I'm enjoying the ride while I'm on it. But I do want to share some of the funny things that I've been just reading about in the news, or just thinking about recently. So I used to host trivia at this North Star Taps in Cheney, Washington, and sometimes I would do these rounds where it was like I would show like a clip of a commercial, and you would have to tell me what the product was that was being sold. And there was this one it's like so bizarre, like such a bizarre advertisement, where it was like this unicorn pooping rainbows, and it was for the Squatty Potty. And I've thought a lot about that commercial, not because I use a Squatty Potty or I want to use a Squatty Potty, even though I've been told the science behind how much that helps your bowel movements is true. But just thinking about man, who came up with that for an advertisement? And so I'm showing just like a video right here of it if you're watching the video version. But if you're not, just check the link in the show notes, and there'll be like a hyperlink to this ad on YouTube, I think. It's just crazy, right? So, man, just thinking color the cat blue, because you never know what you're going to discover in life. I've also been thinking about the power of saying a versus the. So when you say a university, you're like, oh, okay, that's not a lot of power to it. But if you say the Ohio State University, there's some pride in that. There's some power in that. So instead of saying a or an Ohio State, or how would you even say that? Wow, man, English is crazy, dude. That's what I'm discovering right now. Okay, so if you were just saying I bought a fan because it's hot in here and I'm currently sweating, versus you saying I bought the fan, or I bought the fan. When do you say the versus the? Is that just personal preference? Is that Missouri versus Missouri? They're both right. It just depends how you want to say it. So I bought the fan because I was sweating. You're like, wow, he bought the fan. This is the fan to buy. Or I bought a new phone, or I bought the new phone. I don't know if that's grammatically correct, but whenever someone throws a the or a the instead of an a or an an, I'm like, dude, there's something going on here. There's some power cooking up. There's a little power powder kind of doused into that phrase. And so what else have I been thinking about? I've been thinking about mullets a lot. I've been thinking about writing jokes about mullets. I have a mullet. If you didn't know, the summer of 2023 is the summer of the mullet. There's an Instagram. I'm not sure who runs it. It's called Mullet Summer, where they kind of highlight this. But I've been thinking a lot about just people who can't grow a mullet because the top of their head won't grow hair. If you have a really bad receding hairline, you can still participate and you can grow a skullet. I think there's just as much power in a skullet as there is a mullet. Furbys are coming back for the 25-year anniversary. I remember Furbys were a big deal when I was younger. Like this one friend, he had so many Furbys. And we had this fort in the woods behind his house. And in the fort, the fort was just built out of like just old junk, like some like truck bed, like that lining of a trunk bed, like just old logs we found in the woods. And my boy just had, and like tarps, to keep the rain out. And my boy just had like all of his Furbys in the fort. It was like the Furby fort. It's like this, like just memory just ingrained in my mind. And I think looking back on it, like Furbys, like that was just weird. But Furbys are making a comeback. Or I think they're trying to make a comeback. So I'm here for it though, because I think they're such a weird toy. And I'm here for it. Also saw in the news that 3 individuals in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, were charged with stealing a velociraptor statue outside of a museum there. And then whenever they were asked why they did it, they said they wanted to see if night at the museum worked anywhere. And I'm getting this news from a source that's funny, or like they always try to bring like a lighter side to like the news, like what's going on in the world, like even sharing this story. It's kind of funny, but I don't know if they actually said that. But I'm just trying to think, like, if they said that, were they being serious? Did they seriously, like, were these guys, like these folks who maybe they grew up in like a really strict religious household where they weren't able to watch films, like they were very sheltered like the whole life. Maybe they're on like rumspringa. Is that what it's called? Where the Amish like get to leave the community for a while, so like they don't know a lot about the outside world maybe, and they're on rumspringa, and they somehow, like, they got an Airbnb and they're watching Night at the Museum, and they're like, dude, what? Like, the statues at museums come alive? So that night, they're like, this is freaking rumspringa, dude. We're doing whatever we want. So they go down to the local museum in Sioux Falls. They steal the velociraptor statue, and they get caught, and they're like, dude, honestly, we were just thinking that this thing was going to come to life, and like, we were here for it. We're on rumspringa. Or were they just joking? So if you know a lot about, maybe you're in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, if you know a lot about this story, I'm very curious to hear. So like, drop a comment. Let's get to the bottom of this. And also, we're drinking too much water. I think that's the issue. I'm participating in the problem. So I guess what's going on, here's what the scientists are saying, that we've moved so much water in the past 2 decades that the planet has shifted at least 30 inches off of its axis. Now, don't be alarmed whenever I say that, because you're like, golly, Mike, what does that mean? Are we going to fall off the earth because it's flat? No. But one researcher is concerned and surprised. Here's how he's broken it down for us. Good job, or they. I don't know if it's a he or a she. That we have displaced 5.5 million Empire State Buildings worth of groundwater between 1993, the year I was born, and 2010. It's because the water we pump from underground aquifers for irrigation and other activities mostly ends up in the ocean instead of going back into the ground, which causes a pretty big weight distribution. This pumping has also added 6.24 millimeters to sea levels, which have risen by 10 centimeters since 1992. So what I gather from this information is that if you live on a coast like me, What we need to do, what our moral obligation to save the world is to go to the ocean once, if you can, twice a day, if not 3 times a day, with a 5-gallon bucket. You pick it up and you go back to wherever you live on land and you dump it into the ground. And I think if we all commit to doing this over the next 17 years, we may be able to correct the shift so we don't all fall off like a table. Like, a table, if you lift it up, it's like flat like this. But if you start tilting it, things are going to stay on there. But if you tilt it too much, everything's going to fall off. So what I think we need to do is, again, take a bucket if you're on the coast, if you're in the Midwest, if you're a fan from the great state of Missouri listening to this, or you're in the middle of India listening to this, welcome, number one. Glad to have you. And then number 2, you're absolved, but encourage your friends on the coast to be doing this. Maybe if you're traveling to the coast, grab a water bottle, fill it up, throw it in your checked bag, and when you get back home, dump it in the ground. This is blowing my mind. Maybe AI is blowing your mind, because it is for me. Like the crazy things, like there's this thing called Autopod, and I did a 30-day free trial. It just expired, so no more. I'm not quite there yet to use it, but what this AI does is you submit all of your video and your audio tracks into Premiere Pro, which I was also on a free trial for. I'm big on free trials. I'm trying out stuff. I don't often commit to it because I can't afford it, but I do love a good free trial. So I did it, and I submitted the hour and 15 minutes of the last episode of Just Trying to Podcast, and then I synced them all up with Premiere Pro, and then I clicked a button that said for how many video tracks I had and how many speakers I had for the audio, and then there was a lot of processing, and my computer is generally kind of slow, but it took 2 minutes, and it just cut it up. Like whoever was speaking, it would change to that camera, and it would cut back and forth if we were all speaking at once. Very impressive. Very impressive. But I am way more impressed by this video I saw of Domino's in the United Kingdom, where they paired up with this jetpack company, I think called Gravity something, and they delivered pizza with a jetpack. Here's a video. If you're watching the video version, you'll see it as I kind of share this story. If not, click the link in the show notes. So what happens is this guy with the jetpack flies into the local Domino's. He picks up the pizza, throws it in his backpack, and he's got these like air cannons. He looks like Iron Man just floating through this like countryside of the United Kingdom. And he's like just floating. I don't know. It looks like 25, 30 feet above the ground. And then he like hovers into this music festival and like this grassy knoll, and he delivers the pizza, and then he takes off. Now, I know this could have been like faked, but it looks very real. And jetpack deliveries for pizza, I am so proud of what we are accomplishing as the human race. Very excited for where things are going. Lastly, this thing is blowing my mind. There are these birds called umbrella birds, and they do not look like an umbrella. They look like a bird. Don't know why it's called an umbrella bird. I don't get it, but they're real. Check them out. Comedy has been great. So I've performed now all time. This isn't impressive. Just sharing where am I at in my comedy journey. So I have performed, I believe, 62 times on stage, varying from 1 minute to 18 minutes. It's the longest I've performed I've done 20 minutes, actually. So 1 minute to 20 minutes. And like the 20-minute set just counts as one. So 62 times I've gotten up on stage and performed. I believe I've shared this before, that Stephen Rosenfield says you need 1,000 performances. So I'm pretty far away from that still. But it's so much fun. I'm having so much fun doing it. I got some things in the works. I'm going to be starting a monthly comedy show, experimenting with starting a monthly comedy show, Kraken Comedy. I would like to do it like the Clean Kraken, the Crazy Kraken, Killer Kraken, maybe it's like a showcase of the best Kraken comedians. Kraken's like the Seattle Krakens is a hockey team here. Kraken, is associated with the ocean, which we're near the ocean. I like it. KC, Kansas City, KC, Kraken Comedy. So I'll be having, hopefully the first show will be happening the second to last week of July, but be looking out for details if you're in the Northwest or in the Washington State or Seattle area. I'm real excited about that. Upcoming in here just a couple weeks, I'll be having my third audition at Laughs Comedy Club here in Seattle, Washington. Just July 12th, that's a Wednesday. Link in the show notes or any of my Instagram bios. I think the tickets are only $5. I would love to see you come out, support live comedy, support me. I think it's always a fun show at Laughs. Great comedians there, hilarious. This Friday, as this episode is dropping this morning, tonight I will be at the Shanghai Room here in Seattle. I'll be the featured comics. I'll be doing 10 minutes at the open mic there. This is my first feature at an open mic, which I'm pretty excited about. It's not like a whole comedy show where I'm the featuring act, which is a much different level to attain. I'm not there yet. But to get to feature at an open mic, I'm real stoked for. I'll be doing 10 minutes tonight at the Shanghai Room. They say no one bombs at the Shanghai Room, so I'm looking forward to experiencing that promise. And thank you so much, guys, for listening to Just Trying to Podcast. Here is a word from one of the supporters. So if you didn't know, JTP has supporters. Right now we're doing it through the platform of Spotify. You can check the link in the show notes or in the Instagram bio. People give anywhere from 99 cents to $10 a month. And that just goes straight back into the show. And that's to pay guests to come on to the show, get better equipment, just to grow this show, Just Trying to Podcast. So it all goes back into the show. And I thank you for supporting the show, being a part of the Just Trying to movement. Here is a word from this week's featured supporter.
Hello, fellow triers, doers, and everything in betweeners. This is Janet, just coming on to tell you guys about how much I love the podcast. Yeah, I've been a supporter since day one. I really resonated with how Mike was talking about being an in-betweener. I've said, that's me. And my favorite episode is with Jimmy Chuckles talking about these sports back and forth, Mizzou and Kansas. And I just wanted to say that this podcast really changed my life because I have finally laughed at a podcast.
Thank you so much. Again, we couldn't do what we do here at JTP without supporters like you. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. My love goes out to you. Your support is not lost on me. Thank you so much. I've also been thinking about a potential rebrand of JTP. So if you have thoughts about that, drop a comment. If you want to talk about that more, or if you have thoughts about it, who knows? All I know is I'm just trying to podcast. I'm just trying to live, laugh, or love. And as always, my friends, stay funny and stay weird. Peace. Great shot!